Introduction to the Gilded Age.
Back in my day, there was a time of corruption as America was industrializing and the economy was booming. Because gilded objects usually have a golden exterior and a cheap interior, I called this era the Gilded Age.
When James Marshall found gold in Sutter's Mill in 1848, the California gold rush began. Rumors spread quickly about this discovery in California, and to many surprise, the most successful people during this time were not prospectors. For example, Samuel Brannan built a business that sold picks, shovels, and pans. He catered to the hundreds of thousands of people who came to California in search of gold. These people had to travel hundreds or even thousands of miles for gold, so these businesses could drive up the prices. 49ers, as they were called, traveled to California rapidly in 1849. Hence, they were called 49ers.
The California gold rush wasn't the only incentive for people to rush to the west. Henry Comstock discovered silver ore in 6 Mile Canyon, Nevada. This caused a boom in the town of 6 Mile Canyon, and the economy increased exponentially. Sadly, when the silver veins were emptied, everyone left the town, making it a deserted ghost town. This cycle of boom and bust occurred frequently in cities in the West. Besides 6 Mile Canyon, Nevada, there were other bonanzas where people discovered gold ore in Pikes Peak, Colorado, lead in Leadville, Colorado, and gold and silver in Dakota and Montana. This led to a boost in other cities around these boom towns and the construction of railroads to increase communication and transportation in the West. These railroads created easier access to the West and more migration.
To extract gold from the ground, miners used two main techniques. The first was placer mining, which was the extraction of shallow deposits of ore largely by hand, using picks, shovels, and pans. This process served to be very slow and inefficient, which led to more efficient quartz mining. This quartz mining was used by large corporations to extract vast amounts of gold deep beneath the surface, using mine shafts and heavy mining equipment. This type of mining was very hard on its workers, and miners suffered through cramped, excruciatingly hot, and dangerous conditions.
The Great Plains is the broad expanse of flat land, covered in prairie and grassland, that lies west of the Mississippi River states and east of the Rocky Mountains. The Great Plains have a wide variety of weather throughout the year, with very cold and harsh winters to very long and humid summers.
Many people began building farming homesteads on the Great Plains, an area extending westward to the Rocky Mountains from the 100th meridian. Farming did seem unsuitable for the Great Plains, as it was referred to as the Great American Desert. However, the construction of railroads was an important factor for farming in the plains. The catchy slogan, "Rain follows the plow," meant that cultivating the plains increased rainfall, and this encouraged settlers. Soon after this phrase came about, the weather cooperated. The rainfall was above average, and there was a lush greenery that contradicted the beliefs of plains as a desert, which hugely helped settlers in 1870. As you can see here, this is a slogan in Nebraska promoting farming in the Great Plains.
Howdy, y'all! Wheat, a cereal grain, originated from the region of the Near East, but now is cultivated worldwide. It became one of the most important cash crops during a time of drought and horrible weather conditions. It can be easily cultivated on a large scale and has the ability to self-pollinate. It can survive long droughts. During the 1880s, farmers who planted wheat invented new technologies such as reapers and threshers. The productive new wheat belt helped the United States grow into the world-leading exporter of wheat. It is a similar comparison to cotton in the Old South. Sadly, an overproduction of wheat would lead to a drop in price exponentially.
Railroad tracks made the cattle ranching business worthwhile and much more lucrative. It allowed cattle ranchers to move cattle in much larger numbers, which increased the amount of profit that could be made quickly. Though the majority of the cattle did not survive the journey, called the long drive, farmers still made a large profit from this method of transportation.
However, the Texas Longhorn, a breed of cattle descended from Spanish cattle that had been brought to Mexico 2 centuries earlier, had adapted to the harsh Great Plains environment. Lean and rangy, the Longhorn was able to survive and reproduce to as many as 5 million in the grasslands of Texas. Mexican cowhands developed the tools and techniques for rounding up and driving cattle. These Hispanic herders taught American cowhands their trade and enriched the English vocabulary with words of Spanish origin, including lariat, lasso, and stampede. Wow, that one's got some really long horns.
Absolutely!
Yeehaw!
The Native Americans who had lived in the Great Plains for centuries, such as the Lakota, Cheyennes, and Santee, were threatened by the white settlers' presence. When Americans began moving westward according to manifest destiny, many Native Americans were wrongfully killed and pushed off of their land. To create peace with the Native Americans, the American government created the Indian Peace Commission in 1867. They created 2 large reservations. One would hold the Sioux and the other would hold the Plains Indians. Congress also created the Government Bureau of Indian Affairs. The Indians were to receive food and aid from the government as compensation for their relocation. Rather than actually creating peaceful relations, however, the Indian Peace Commission created tension. It forced Native Americans to sign treaties and did not give them the promised supplies. In retaliation, many young Native Americans formed war parties who were opposed to reservation life, and the white settlers continued to invade the Indians' reservation.
The Homestead Acts were several United States federal laws that gave an applicant ownership of land, typically called a homestead, at little to no cost. These acts were mainly passed to appease the free soil policy of the Northerners, who wanted individual farmers to own and operate their own farms, as opposed to being controlled by Southern fat cat slave owners.
Back in my day, I led the greatest tribe in all of the land, the Lakota Sioux. We fought for our people. I refused to adopt any dependence on the white man. We did not like reservations. As the white man had more people, I wanted to keep our people safe, so we went away to Canada for the time being.
The Dawes Act of 1887, also known as the General Allotment Act, authorized the President of the United States to survey American Indian tribal land and divide it into allotments for individual Native Americans. Those who accepted these allotments and lived separately from their tribe would be granted United States citizenship, and with citizenship comes the right to life, liberty, and property. The point of this act was to lift Native Americans out of what Americans called poverty and to stimulate the assimilation of them into mainstream American society. It proved a dismal failure, and even 2 revisions could not save it. The Native Americans had already found deep bonds with their tribes and environment, and felt disgusted in leaving it.
As I tried to protect our people's interests, the white men tried to arrest me. I die after I resist arrest, as they resort to violence. They shoot me and kill me, which devastates the Sioux. A battle broke out at Wounded Knee Creek in my honor, costing the lives of 200 Lakota Sioux.
Now, the Western colonial expansion mighty upset the natives of America. Them there was called Indians, and they fought tooth and nail against the non-Indian travelers, and eventually, because their individual territories diminished greatly, they fought against each other in the plains. Groups such as the Lakota, the Southern Plains Indians, the Comanche, the Apache, and more fought against the settlers and themselves in a conflict called the Plains Wars.
The ghost dance was a way for Native Americans to deal with reservation life. They did this to hold on to their old traditional culture and to deal with the poverty and hunger in the reservations, which they felt was caused by the whites. The federal government blamed Sitting Bull and killed him subsequently. After, they killed nearly 200 Lakota at Wounded Knee Creek.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching.